Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us on today's webinar, the 5 ways to convert your website visitors into customers. Today's webinar will be presented by Jag Panesar, who is our director here at Xpand Marketing. Jag's going to run through these 5 ways, and hopefully you will all take something away from it. So we're just going to do a bit of housekeeping for us before we begin. As you will already be aware, you are muted and will remain muted throughout the webinar. You can use the chat function to ask any questions during the webinar, and then we will look at them and answer them at the end. When we share our screen to present, you can make it bigger or smaller by moving the slider left or right on your desktop device. And as I've already said, we will be recording the webinar for use on our website. So if you have any issues with your picture, I suggest you turn your camera off just in case. Okay, so I'll hand you over to Jag and off we go.
Okay, right. So I'll start with a few bits of information that you probably already know because you've probably read this. If you read any of the promo material that we put out, this was on there. So studies show that humans have an attention span of 8 seconds. That's one less second than our friend Fred the goldfish here. So we have only an 8-second attention span. This study was done, I think it was a few years ago now. About 10 years prior to that, it was actually measured at 12 seconds. So basically, we as a people are just more distracted than we've ever been. If you think about the way that you use your mobile phone, the TV going on in the background, we just don't have the attention span that we used to. In addition to that, another stat that you will have seen, 88% of people carry out research online before buying. You will have seen this on the promo material that we sent out. Now, this particular statistic combined with what I just showed you about our attention span, we've got decreasing attention spans, and we are carrying out research online. So these two things just point to the fact that you really need to be capturing people as quick as possible on your website. Now, what really bothered me when I was doing this particular research for this webinar was that a lot of the data to do with website usage was very much business to consumer e-commerce type websites. And a lot of it was American as well. Obviously, when you're working with the internet, it's a global thing. But there was nothing that was really bang on. This is very much geared towards business to business. There are business to consumer, a lot of stuff you can take as a business to consumer organization, but a lot of it's business to business. So what I did was I did a bit of my own research. I put a poll out on LinkedIn last week and I asked the question, as a business to business organization, and how many times do you visit a website before you make an inquiry? And this is a screenshot of the response that I got from LinkedIn. So we had 62 votes, and out of that, 24% said once, 48% said they'd visit 2 to 3 times, 19% 4 to 5, and 8% 5+ times. So this is probably this is very fitting data. The good news is it actually fits close-ish to a lot of the research I was doing to do with the American e-commerce site. So that was good news. But also the fact that the majority of people that filled it out are very much the people, very similar to the people that are in this webinar today. So it's very fitting. So the question is, what does this data actually mean? It means that you need to convert these 24% said that they only visit a website once. You need to convert 24% of them the first time they visit your site. So that's almost 1 in 4. That's quite big, to be fair. And then it also means the risk of losing the other 76% to competition in between website visits. So obviously, if you're visiting a site 2 or 3 times, you're not doing it back to back. You're visiting. It might be over the space of a week, 2 weeks, a month, depending on whatever the buying pattern is for this particular thing that you're purchasing. And in that time, these people are in the market for that particular product or service. They might have stumbled across your competition's website, so they might be drawn into them if they're doing things better than you. So this really points out the importance of some of the things that I'm going to be laying out in today's webinar. And there's 5 key ways that you can use to get more inquiries and more customers via your website. So number one, I'm going to be talking about what I call the Xpand funnel, but it's basically a lead magnet. It's just our take on it. And a lead magnet is it's a concept that exists in the world of digital marketing. Number 2 is building credibility through testimonials and reviews. Number 3 is creating a LinkedIn landing page for a smoother user flow. Number 4 is creating engaging content for your target audience. And number 5 is thinking about what you need to consider when placing CTAs on your website. A CTA is a call to action. I had to put it in the CTAs because I ran out of space and I didn't want it to go over 2 lines. So that's what we're going to be going through. So a few important pointers before we go ahead. User experience design changes regularly. The way that we use websites as humans, it just changes all the time. The technology is changing. iPad. Think about when iPads came in and phones came in and mobile responsive websites came in. It changes all the time. So the stuff I'm talking about today may not have actually been relevant 6 months, a year ago, 2 years ago. The sites that we've built, we haven't implemented stuff like this in the past, but we have done it. We might be doing it as we speak at the moment. So stuff changes all the time. Today's session is geared very much around business to business organizations, as I mentioned before, but there is a relevance to business to consumer. There is so much that we can be talking about when it comes to what makes a website successful. It could be stuff like design or images or load speed, but they're the kind of more obvious things. I'm not going to cover that because we've only got so much time to go through stuff. I'm also working here to the assumption that you're actually getting traffic to your website, because, if you're not, then you're not going to get any inquiries. Again, that's a different webinar on how to get traffic to the website. This is focused around people getting to your site and then, trying to convert them into an inquiry and then into a customer. But the actual conversion in most business-to-business scenarios, in business-to-business service providers, unless you've got an e-commerce website, is down to you. The website, what we're going to be talking about here is creating the inquiry, but what happens when the inquiry is made and when they contact you or your salespeople, obviously that's down to how you're selling whatever it is you're selling. So, that's something that there's a responsibility. It's all a big chain and we're just a part of that. So before I go any further, a little bit about Xpand. So we're a full-service digital marketing agency. Our studio is based in Saltaire in West Yorkshire, and I set the business up 13 years ago in 2007. In terms of some of the more recognisable brand names that we have worked with over the years, they are, just a second. There are Lindt Chocolate, Arga Restaurants, the Tetley Brewery, and Her Majesty's Prison Service. But the majority of the client base we work with are very much the SME sector. But like I said, they're just the more recognisable names that we've worked with. We built a website for Arga Restaurants. For those of you who don't know, they're a chain of restaurants in West Yorkshire and Northern England. And for Lindt, we built an internal HR intranet system, which user experience was a very important part of that. The Tetley was lead generation, and Her Majesty's Prison Service was an internal branding project that they had. A few statistics in terms of the kind of stuff that we do. Results, Headway Recruitment, we built the website for them, we've done their SEO, we helped them get £114,000 of converted business in 12 months. Pitts Wilson are an electrical contractor. We helped them get £200,000 of inquiries in the space of 6 weeks. This was a few years ago now. They've rebuilt their website since. We didn't do that. So if you look at it, it's nothing to do with us. And Chris Makin, I can see you here, Chris. Thank you for coming along. Great guy. We worked on Chris Makin's website about 2 years ago now. And since then, he's pulled in about somewhere in the region of about £70,000 to £80,000 business that he's reported back to us. And then we've been doing a lot of SEO for him. And then finally, Energy Mill Gym. They are a gym in Shipley. We did a strategy for them, the website and branding. Again, this was a few years ago. They had a goal of getting 500 members in the space of 4 weeks. We helped them get that within 3 weeks. So that's a bit about us, just to kind of, there's a lot of experience behind the kind of things we're talking about. It's not all web design related stuff, but it gives an indication of the kind of stuff that we do. So, Solar 7, those of you who have heard me speak before, you'll have heard me talk about this, so please just bear with me a moment because it is important. This is the framework that we work around on everything that we do. There are 7 stages to achieve return on investment for your business, and I'll talk through them. Number 1 is discovery, understanding where your business has been, where it is now, where it wants to go, what the objectives are, who your competition are, who your target audience are. Once you've done that, you go on to number 2, stage 2, which is creating a strategy. That captures all activity that needs to take place, and the outcome from creating the strategy should be a roadmap, which is basically saying you need to do this in January, that in February, that in March, and so on and so on. And that's all built around the objectives. So starting with the end in sight. Stage number 3 is getting your brand and your message right, and that's at the heart of everything that you do. But your brand isn't just your logo, it's also things like your mission, your vision, your values, your tone of voice. Number 4 is getting your website right, which is obviously what we're going to be talking about a lot today, and that's a bit like the sun in your solar marketing system. And then number 5 is about getting people through to your website, what I call the planets, via things like social media, getting found on Google, PR, advertising, and email, but it's not limited to that. And then content is the orange ring around each one of these. Again, that's a very important thing. Getting, you could be posting stuff on social media all day, every day, but if you're not saying anything of any relevance, it means absolutely nothing. Stage 6 is reviewing and measuring and testing on what's happening and tweaking, and then that's ultimately what gets you to return on investment. So that's the broader overview model that we work to, which I'm going to reference as we go along. So the sales funnel. You may have seen me posting about this on LinkedIn a few days ago. A lot of what we're doing, we all go through the sales funnel process. This is a basic sales funnel, whether we're buying a packet of gum or whether we're buying a house or everything in between. So I'll give you an example. Again, you might have heard me mention this on LinkedIn. Let's say I need a new car. My car's broken down. I want to buy a car. I decide, right, I want a German car. I want a BMW or I want an Audi. I've seen their advertising. I'm their target audience. I like what they have to offer. I'm aware of them as a brand. So awareness has been fulfilled from their part. I then go into consideration. And in this case, I go onto their websites and I have a look at what each one of their websites, the websites have to offer and what model I want to go for and what the bells and whistles are for each one. And then I decide, right, I'd like this particular model of BMW or this particular model of Audi. So I go into the showroom for each manufacturer and I chat with the sales guy, test drive the car, and I decide that I would like an Audi. So I move into the purchase stage. I then take my Audi home and really enjoy driving it. And 12 months later, Audi contact me and say, Mr. Panesar, you've been invited to our VIP event, and we would like to invite you to upgrade your model and purchase, upgrade, and spend more money with us or whatever. I've basically got into their retention model. This process is what we all go through, no matter what. When we're buying, we all go through this in its simplest form. There's all kinds of complex versions of it, but for the benefit of today, we'll go through that. So step number 1, or way number 1, to get more customers onto your website is what I call the Xpand funnel. It's a lead magnet, and I'll explain what that is. So I've just explained the sales funnel to you, and I've turned that sideways. I've turned that on its head. Sorry, just one second. Yeah, I've turned that sideways. So we've got awareness, consideration, engagement, purchase, and retention. So in the first instance, you're building awareness for your website, for your brand. You might be doing that via online marketing, social media, SEO, pay-per-click, email marketing, or PR. Or you might be doing it via offline marketing, again, PR, advertising, TV, radio, or most probably networking. A lot of the business-to-business arena do a lot of networking. So you've built awareness for who you are. You've given your business card out, or people have seen you on social or Google. They go to your website. Now, in a perfect world, so at this point, they're in the consideration stage. In a perfect world, they're going to bypass engagement and they're just going to go straight to inquiry. Happy days. They're making the inquiry, and then you can move them in your sales process and put a quote in for them or a proposal and try and convert them. But the reality is, it doesn't always happen. Judging by the research that I did, 76% of the times it doesn't happen. So what you need to do is you need to capture your client data in exchange for some kind of valuable information. So in other words, say, give me your email address, and in exchange for that, I will give you a PDF that outlines my area of expertise, and that will add some value to what you're doing. And by doing that, you can then set up email automation. You can automate emails to go out to them regularly just to keep your brand at the forefront of their mind. So that will help increase the conversion rate. So if you're in a scenario where, well, let's put it this way, you see between 3,000 and 25,000 marketing messages a day. If you think about walking down the street, all the branding that you see on cars and shop signs, and if you think about when you're on your phone, you're seeing all kinds of things on your phone. You're constantly being hammered with messaging. So you need to stand out from the noise and have that regularity of messaging in front of your target audience. So you're increasing your opportunity to be seen. And then once you've done that, that's what's going to nudge people along to making the inquiry and going through to purchase. And then once they've done that, then you're in retention. You want to regularly keep emailing them, depending on whatever it is that you sell. You want to make sure you stay in front of them. So, for example, if you sell printers, you know that the way to retain your client is by selling them toner cartridge. So, if you're regularly messaging them saying, I want to sell, here's our product, that's going to keep you at the fore of the mind, and off the back of that, you'll be retaining the client. So that, folks, is a lead magnet. So an example of this is from our website. Our lead magnet is a marketing strategy template download talking about our Solar 7 model. And basically we entice people in a number of places to download a free marketing strategy template. Note the use of language here. Download my free marketing strategy template. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more later on. And that basically takes you to a page and allows people to download something. It emails them a link to a PDF that they can see this particular value-adding piece of information, and then it automates emails and it sends stuff to them every now and again just to nudge them along. And if they do decide that they want to make an inquiry, they'll make an inquiry with us. So I'll give you a few examples for a variety of businesses. If you're an accountancy practice, a good example could be the type of content, value-adding content could be something along the lines of how to grow your business without taking on more staff. I read a really good downloadable document from an accountancy firm in Manchester that specialise in creative agencies. So I was their target audience, and it was called Stop Growing Your Agency, which is obviously, it's a bit of a provocative title. You think, what's that all about? I suppose the natural thing in business is to grow. But what he's talking about is, it's talking about you can be more profitable without having the overhead and the vanity of more people and more, a big space. You can be more profitable, and it just put a different slant on the way of thinking about things. And that, I found that really valuable information. I'm not looking to move accountants, but if I ever was, these guys, I would consider talking to them, because I liked the way that they put the information together. If you're a finance broker, a good example could be 5 ways to manage your cash flow better. Obviously, ultimately you want people to borrow money from you. And arguably, maybe you don't want them to manage cash flow better, so they have to borrow money, arguably. But really, about what you're doing is about managing finance. So really, if you're giving them useful information on this, they will find an intrinsic value for what you're doing. And off the back of that, they will consider you. They'll think well of you if they're in a situation where they need to borrow money. If you're an insurance broker, again, this is just an example. 7 ways to save on your annual insurance premium. To be honest, I don't even know if there's one way to save on my insurance premium. But this is the kind of thing. Obviously, you guys are the experts, so these are just example titles that you could come up with of the kind of thing that people will actually latch onto. And if you're a printer, if you provide printing services, say stationery, that kind of thing, maybe providing a downloadable template pack for stationery, maybe for something like Adobe InDesign templates or examples of stuff if people want to do it themselves. It's value-adding stuff that's going to complement the kind of thing you're doing. So These examples hopefully give a bit of an indication of the kind of thing, kind of lead magnet you can put on your website in order to entice people to provide data, their email address. Obviously, it needs to be GDPR compliant. I'm not a GDPR expert, so you need to speak to the ICO on that side of things. But obviously, there are rules that you absolutely have to follow. It has to be stored in a safe and secure manner and all kinds of other things, and only be used with the consent of the user. So a few tips on that. Make sure you know how long it takes from point of contact to the point of conversion. So, which will basically dictate how long how regularly you need to email prospects. So, for example, for us, from the point someone contacts us to the point they jump on board, it might be anywhere between a month to 2 months. So I know how many times I need to communicate in between the point of contact to the point of conversion to hopefully improve the in conversion rate. Know your website users' buying patterns. How regularly do they need to come to your website to learn about you? Again, if you're an estate agent selling houses versus a company that sells shoes, the likelihood is you're going to get more visits if you're selling shoes. Give your users a reason to come back to your site, to visit your website. If you're putting regular emails out, automated emails, you want to have fresh new content on there. So if you're adding blogs that are value adding and it's regular, if you're sending these regular emails and using the blog title, so maybe as an opportunity to pull them in, then that is something that's going to just, again, the idea is you want to try and use up as much time as possible. We're all busy people. If you can capture your users' time as much as possible, you're just using that as an opportunity to imprint your brand in their mind that much more. And then just a few tips. Email automation software. This is a completely different webinar. I'm not going to go into this, but examples, the most popular is MailChimp, and then there's Campaign Monitor and Active Campaign. They're just a few that you can look into that setup automation. So that was number one. So the next one is building credibility through testimonials and reviews. Why do you need to build credibility through testimonials and reviews? It's a great way to create emotional appeal. If somebody is writing a testimonial or review for you, it's something that people can relate to. And if it's something that's talking about how the problem was solved, you can relate to that. So you're going to think, oh, right, someone else has said that's good. And it builds credibility for your brand because it's seen to be written by a third party. So what makes a good testimonial? A really important thing here is I see a lot of scenarios where, and I've been asked this myself, where a client will say, I haven't got time to write a testimonial. Can you just write it and I'll check it over? And in the past, I have said, yeah, okay, I'll do that. But if I'm honest, I feel that that's probably not the right way to go about it. What you need to be doing is get them to do it and ask them to do it when they're really happy with something you've just delivered. They're more likely to do it. And, keeping the language natural, it does not have to be written in the Queen's English. Those days are, it's all about authenticity. If your client speaks like the Queen, then by all means, or if you have done some work for the Queen, then and she's going to write you a testimonial, then get one to write a testimonial for you. Make it, colloquialisms and authenticity is something that people will really buy into. If you start editing what your customer has written for you and put it into the style of your written language on your website, people will see through that. Authenticity is something that we as users, social media users, website users, we pick up on just like that. So that's really important. What else makes a good testimonial? Reference an outcome. People want to pay for the result. I don't care if I bought a Ferrari. I wouldn't care what was going on under the engine unless I was a petrol head. I'd just care that it's red and shiny and fast. I want to know, that, talk statistics. I've given you a whole bunch of statistics in terms of the stuff that we've achieved, and that's the kind of stuff that gets noticed. So I'll give you an example. John Smith's accountants helped us save 3 hours a week by streamlining our systems. If you can measure something like that, that's brilliant, because that equates to about, 150 odd hours in a year, which probably equates to something like a month's worth of man hours or woman hours. And that's a massive saving. There's a huge cost benefit there. So if you can put any stats into your testimonials, that's the kind of thing that will really get people's attention over your competition. And remember our friend Fred, the goldfish? He's got an attention span of 9 seconds. He's laughing at us right now because if we're not keeping it short and concise, we are going to be losing people. You do not want an essay on there. If you've got longer testimonials, put them on a case study page. But it needs to stay short and concise, the salient points and just the real key things that got out there, because people have different habits of the way that they read information, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a bit more detail. So a few tips to do with that. Place a testimonial on your homepage, just one, a really good one, and that will just give a little bit of a taster. A testimonial or a review on your homepage, it'll give a bit of a taster. You can place more on there. It depends on the use case, actually. There are different use case scenarios. You can feed reviews into your website via review platforms like Google or Yelp.com. There is a bit of development work involved in that, and there are pros and cons to that. The upside is that it'll look fresh all the time. The downside is if somebody has left a bad review for you, that could show as well. But there are actually ways and means around that as well. When writing a review, ask your client to say names. Make it personal. Everything I'm talking about in today's webinar, the underlying theme is the personal brand element, making it personal. People buy from people, and in a B2B environment, that's probably more prominent than in most B2C environments. Ask your client to leave a recommendation on LinkedIn. You're killing two birds with one stone. They'll leave the recommendation on LinkedIn. Again, that's a completely different webinar that Danny will be able to talk all about all day, every day. If you get them to leave a recommendation on LinkedIn, then you'll be able to use that on your website as well. Speaking of LinkedIn, going on to number three, way number three is creating a LinkedIn landing page for a smoother user flow. So a user flow is basically, when you want somebody to go from one website page to another, to another, to another. It's the way that you're flowing them and where you're directing them to get them to do whatever you want to do. So, personal brand. Our friend Jeff Bezos, one of the richest men in the world, I think, he said, your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So if you think about LinkedIn, we're all putting our personal brand out there, and we're talking and trying to build our personal brand, probably now more than ever, really, because social media has become such a prominent platform in recent times. So if you think about that, how do you connect your personal brand to your business brand? Whether it's you as the individual business owner and it's just yourself, or whether you've got you're a salesperson for a bigger organization, or you've got a team of 4 or 5. There's a disconnect, and you want to connect them together to get people to buy into your business brand. The answer to that is a LinkedIn landing page. So the traditional LinkedIn website link, you go to LinkedIn, you go to someone's page, you decide, right, I want to learn more about this person. You've engaged with their profile, whatever. You think, I want to know what their website looks like. You would normally go to contact, and you click on their website homepage, and then from there, you would go to wherever you're going to go, services, about, case studies, or whatever. If you want to see anything about the people, typically you'd go from about to the people. Some people have connections from the homepage. Fair enough, but typically it's that way. Now, the reality is, when you're going in for the homepage, you're probably thinking, I'm not really that bothered about the people. You're going to look at that last, maybe. You're going to go into the services. The LinkedIn landing page model is different. What you do with that is you take a person to a dedicated page for that person, but not just a page where it says, this is Joe, and Joe is really good at plumbing, and Joe likes chocolate, and Joe doesn't like football, or whatever. This is a page that talks about them in relation to their skills. So in this case, I'm going to show you an example for Danny for one of our LinkedIn landing pages. So Danny's area of expertise is social media and strategy. So the user flow, when Danny clicks on when the user clicks on Danny's landing page and the idea is that strategy is the first link that they will see. That's the most likely one they're going to click on, statistically speaking. From there, they will go to a case study. From there, they will go to the call to action, which in this case is get a quote. So I'm going to show you an example. I'm just going to pull over my screen. Danny, can we see your LinkedIn profile? Yep, we can. Brilliant. So I'm on Danny's LinkedIn profile, and yeah, I've engaged with her on LinkedIn and whatnot. So I decide, right, I want to learn a little bit more about the business. I go to contact information and I go to the website. So rather than going to the home page, what it's doing is it's taking me to a page dedicated to Danny that could look a little bit like a home page. So here it's talking about the authenticity that Danny believes in to do with social media. There's a bit more information about her beliefs in relation to her area of expertise. A lovely picture of Danny. Information, a link to the strategy page and social media page on our website. Information on projects that she's worked on and results achieved, statistics. A recommendation that was given to her on LinkedIn that mentions her name, as I mentioned, that we've put onto here. Information on blogs that she's written, and then a connection to our lead magnet. So like I say, again, this is all about Danny and in relation to the things that she can do. So let's say we've gone to the strategy page. These are the two pages that we want people to go to because they're the things that she works on. So we've gone to the strategy services page and we're talking about everything that we do strategy-wise, the service, what it looks like. Again, just reinforcing our credibility with statistics, a link to our process page, which is Solar 7, a testimonial from a client, and again, just reinforcing statistics of things that we've achieved. And at the end of it, a lovely picture of me wearing a poppy. I bet you can't tell when this picture was taken. And then the call to action is get a quote or go into the lead magnet. But that's at the footer of every page. But let's say they decide, they're not ready to take that leap yet. They don't want to actually contact us or do anything. They just want to do a little bit more. So they think, right, well, let me learn a little bit more about what they did with Headway Recruitment, the statistic I've told you about. So you're going to read a little bit more. What was the challenge? What was it that they did? What were the visuals? What was the solution? And you're going through it. And then again, the call to action is get a quote. And it takes you to a page that basically then requests you to fill in your information and submit your inquiry, all GDPR compliant. So that is an example of a LinkedIn landing page. This is just one of those things that makes it a little bit more personal, and it could just be that little pebble that just sways the client to make the prospect to making that inquiry and makes it much more connected, in this case, to Danny, than going straight to the homepage. We have a very people-orientated focus on our own on our website, but this is just that much more personable. And the reason I'm showing it on our website is we've got all kinds of examples with clients, but obviously if we're giving away their little tips and tricks, that's something that we don't want to be giving away their data. Things to think about when creating tips on creating it. Think about your user flow. So I've outlined to you on the last page a bit of an outline of the user flow. Where do you want people to go? Where do you want them to lead through on your page, LinkedIn page? Talk about what you believe in relation to your expertise. Values are absolutely paramount in your brand. What do you believe in as an individual? What are your business values? The emotive element, people will buy into that. Make eye contact in your pictures. Eyes are a strong biomotive trigger. So this is research and terminology that came about from a chap called Simon Priest. He's a branding expert and an industry leader. And he set up an agency called Elmwood that's in Leeds, I think. And I saw him speak about a year ago. Amazing top speaker, and he specializes in product brand. He basically, there's things that he's done that actually was able to improve the sales, create an increase in sales off the back of the way that the brand packaging was designed. And Andrex toilet roll was one example. He actually changed the imagery of the puppy dog, the Andrex dog, rather than looking away from the camera, looking into the camera. And it was the emotive element that influenced people to actually pick up that particular brand of toilet roll and purchase that. Now, obviously in a B2B environment, the buying experience isn't as immediate as it would be to picking up a product off a shelf, but there is an emotive element behind it. So if you've got good, strong eye contact in pictures, and it's natural, that's something that's beneficial. Add a testimonial that talks specifically about you. So the testimonial that you saw on Danny's LinkedIn landing page was relevant to her. You could go one step further and add in another call to action saying work with me, and that could actually be a dedicated form that will directly connect with that person. So again, you're taking away the slightly less personable element of the business, and you're bringing in working with that person. And also, as an added bonus, you could add the link for your LinkedIn landing page to the email signature. So if you're emailing people and they want to learn about you, and then again, they're going to go in to see the information to do with you as a person, but then also know everything how you connect in with the business. And at any point, they can go to the homepage because the navigation's in there. It just makes it that much more authentic and that much more personal. So moving on to number 4, create engaging content for your target audience. So I'm going to give you a few stats. 38% of people will stop engaging with a website if the content and layout are unattractive. Users spend an average of 5.59 seconds looking at a website's written content. So Fred the goldfish is going to be belly laughing at us right now, because that 8 seconds has now gone to 5.59 seconds. If given 15 minutes to consume content, 2/3 of people would rather read something beautifully designed than something plain. So these stats come from this particular source here. This was something that was released not so long ago, within the last month or so. So again, all of this points towards the fact that your content is really, 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 really important. If you think back to the Solar 7 model, content is at the heart of your model, whether it's on your website or whether it's on your social media. What you're saying and the way you're saying it and the language you're using is really, 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 really important. So the key things that you need to consider: know your business values. What are the key 3 things that you believe in? And I would challenge you. The most common thing I hear is, oh, we believe in honesty, we believe in integrity, we believe in quality. The reality is you should believe in all those things anyway. Go a step further than that. Dig deep. What are the key things that you really believe in? And with that as a foundation, that would come through. It doesn't have to be written out. These are things that, within your culture of your organization, that's there. Know your audience. Who is it that you're writing for? If you know who you're writing for and you know your values, how the bridge is there to connect the two in terms of what you're writing. Solve their problem. Tell them the outcomes. They don't necessarily care about, how fancy that engine is. They want to care that the car will take them from A to B and it's affordable and they can get their 3 kids in the back and fit the pram in the boot. Lead them through your website. This takes me back to user flow. Make sure you're sending them. You're not just going to go to your website and say buy now and that's it. In an e-commerce scenario, obviously that's what people want you to do. In a B2B environment, they need to warm into it a little bit. Again, going back to that initial research, 24% might say yeah, but 3/4 have said they're going to do that more. They're going to visit the site more than once. So speaking of user flow, Google Analytics, this is a screenshot from Google. It's not anyone's data that we use. I just took this off of, I just Googled behavior flow. You can use Google Analytics to actually understand how people are going from your homepage, what page they're going to, and then where they're going to from there and where they're dropping off. So if you've got a website and you've got Google Analytics, have a look at the section under behavior called behavior flow, and you will see what's happening and where they're going. And if they're not doing what you want them to do, it means you need to make some adjustments to your website and change your calls to action, which I'll talk about shortly. So a few tips on that. Don't write in large blocks. Different people have different reading styles. You get skimmers, swimmers, and divers. I think they're pretty self-explanatory, really. Skimmers just skim over it. Swimmers go in halfway. Divers read every last bit of detail. I'm a skimmer. At best, I'm a swimmer, and I will dive if I really have to. It's just the way that I engage with content. So the way that and I feel that when you're putting content together, you need to factor all these people in. So by making the content digestible in chunks, that way you're factoring in everyone's reading habits. Write for your target audience, not for you. A very common scenario when we see people writing their own content, they write based on what they think they would want to see, but they may not be the target audience. Think about who you're selling to. Hire a professional copywriter that understands web usability. If you're not, one thing I would recommend is hire a professional copywriter, full stop, if you have the budget for it. But Copywriters come from all different angles, and I've worked with all kinds of copywriters, great people. They might come from, they might have a PR background or editing, proofreading background. The important thing is whoever you're going to use, make sure that they understand the things that we're talking about now, especially user flow and how you're going to lead them through the website. Because if they don't, they're going to be missing the mark, and that's going to be detrimental for you. Finally, what to consider when placing calls to action on your website. So this is another way of getting customers through onto your website. So what is a call to action? And so a call to action is defined as a phrase that is used to tell the user exactly what action to take. So Tag Search and Select is a recruitment agency that we built a website for a few years ago. Very clean calls to action. There's two audiences that any recruitment agency has, is the client and the candidate. So the first two things, when you go on there, both are equally as important. So it's a very solid call to action above what we call the fold, which is the bottom part of the page when you first go onto it. So it's basically giving a clear, it's an action that you want people to take. So think about, what is it that when you're putting a call to action together, what do you want people to actually do? Do you want to entice them to provide your contact details? Do you want them to sign up for the lead magnet that I've talked about? Or do you want them to move them to another page? Think about user flow that I'm talking about. I'll give you an example. Book a discovery call versus get a quote. So this is from my own experience, a mistake. I'm not too proud to admit. I've been in business for 13 years. I've made a lot of mistakes. And to be honest, this is something that happened a couple of years ago. So I showed you earlier on our get a quote page. We redesigned and developed our website about a year and a half ago. Our Solar 7 process, step one is discovery. And I thought, what I want to do is entice people to come in and book a discovery call so that I can talk to them, tell them what we're all about, and then take them to the next stage, have a meeting, and then put a proposal together. So the call to action I put down was book a discovery call. And what we found that there was less traffic going to this particular site. So therefore, this particular page, the get a quote page, what is now the get a quote page. So therefore, the inquiries dropped out a little bit. And I thought, okay, well, this isn't right. We've got a new website. It should be better. So what we did was we changed it to get a quote. And all of a sudden, straight away, immediately, the traffic increased to that particular page, and people were immediately filling in the form and inquiring. The mistake that I made was book a discovery call. That's terminology that we use. The Solar 7 model has been really well received, and I just took the rather egotistical approach of thinking, yeah, everybody knows what a discovery call is. Let's put it on there, but they don't. They know what a quote is. A discovery call could mean anything. So that's something. Another thing, I'll show you the Xpand website. Now, again, this was a learning curve. So this particular page is laid out, the get a quote page is laid out as it's in prose. Hello, my name is insert name. I'm inquiring on behalf of insert company. We require assistance with, drop down, select which service it is. I'd like the project completing by whatever the date is. Email me at this address, telephone number. That's the form, submit inquiry. We did this, this type of form, we put it together about 5 years ago, and we did it in a rush because we were so busy while we were building our own site. We just rushed it. And I know that's not what you want to hear from a creative design agency, but when you've got client work, that's obviously what we need to focus on. And when we get time, we focus on our own site. We put that style of form together. And at the time, I said to the developer who actually did it, I said, oh no, I'm not really happy with that, but we'll come back to it. And we never came back to it. But what happened was our inquiry rate was great. So anyway, we rebuilt the site a year and a half ago. And we said, right, we're going to fix this now. So what we did was those fields that I've just mentioned to you, we put them into what I call a standard quote format. So it's just, a box, and it's got name, company name at the top. And what happened was our inquiries, people were visiting the site now because we called it get a quote rather than book a discovery call. But then people stopped engaging with it so much, and our inquiries dropped out again. And I thought, what the hell's going on here? So what we did was we actually tested it. And we thought, let's just switch back to this format that I've just shown you now. And sure enough, our inquiry rate went back to normal again. So what this points to is a much more conversational style, a much more human and personable style is what people respond to. Like I say, the underlying theme of everything I'm talking about today is it's that personable, authentic element. So if there's anything I would say with a call to action is basically, again, just be human with it. And the kind of language you're using, keep it human. So a few tips to do with that. Give all your calls to action the same styling. And by that, I mean, looking at this, don't make one call to action blue and green and make the other one orange. Ours are all consistent in a certain style throughout our website. So you just know what, when you need to click on something, it's there. Use simple terminology. My example is great, a discovery call. What the hell is a discovery call? Not everybody will totally get that. So keep it clean, keep it simple. Personalize where possible. I've been saying that throughout, and just make it something that's, speaking to people. But the key thing I'm referencing here is I've mentioned the lead magnet. When I said the call to action I showed you was, download my call to action. Sorry, I'm just trying to do two things at once. Obviously, I struggle with that. I'm just going to pull this up. Download my free marketing strategy template. When you want someone to do something directly that takes an immediate action and you're giving them something, putting in has statistically been proven to actually get a higher conversion rate. And that wraps up the 5 ways to increase the number of inquiries that you get from your website. So from this webinar, you should now know what a lead magnet is and how you can use it to help convert inquiries, the anatomy of a good testimonial and how to use a LinkedIn landing page, what to consider when creating content, and what you need to consider when putting calls to action on your website. There's one last thing I want to show you, and that's 2 extremely powerful tools that I want you to just look into that you can take away. But before we do that, I'd like you just to take, Danny, if you could put the link into the chat. I'd really like you, we're getting towards the end, just before we get into a questions and answers session. It'll take you 1 minute to fill in the survey. So I'm just going to give you 1 minute just to fill in a survey, just to let us know how things have gone, what your thoughts are on today. And please, 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 just be as honest as possible. It's anonymous. My feelings are not going to be hurt. It's going to help us improve. So I'll give it a minute now.
It's in there now.
Great. Thanks, Danny.
No worries. Damien will get to your question afterwards as well, just to let you know. People could give us a done or something like that in the group chat. That'd be good. We know we can move on, maybe. Cool. I'm getting lots of them through now. Cheers, everyone. Just a few more people, I think, to do.
Thank you, James. Oh, I need some water. You're talking non-stop for the last hour.
It's not out of the ordinary. I think the majority of people have done. So.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you haven't had time or don't get a chance or whatever, if you can.
Nice one, Jim.
I need to stop reading these comments. Right. So before I let me hide the comments. Right. Before I go any further into the Q&A, there's 2 tools that I think that would be worth you guys looking at. I've already mentioned one of them. Google Analytics. You're probably, a lot of you will be aware of that. It's really powerful, and I think it's massively underused. If you've got it on your website, request it from your web developers if you haven't already got access, and just get your head around it. There isn't a huge amount. You can go into all kinds of detail on it, but that will help you understand the way people are using your website. And no one is going to really love your website more than you. And off the back of that, that's the kind of thing that could prompt you to actually think about maybe the way suggestions that you can make if you're not doing it yourself. So suggestions you can make to your agency on the kind of things that you could potentially tweak, and they can make suggestions around that as well. And then the other one is it's called Lucky Orange. Not many people know about this, but there are a lot of bits of software like this, and it allows you to record and watch how people use your website, and this usually blows people's minds. It's completely GDPR compliant. It doesn't record. Someone once asked me, does it record me using it, as in record their face? No, it doesn't. It records the way that particular website is being used, and you see the little cursor just going around where they click, and it shows what they've clicked on and how they're using it and how long they've stayed on a page, and it shows what we call heat mapping and what they're clicking on the most. It's really, really, really powerful and really useful. You can sign up to it for free. I think probably for, 30 days, and then it's 10 quid a month for the lowest package. If you want to understand how people are using your website at the moment, it's a really good investment, because that could actually help you dictate the things that need to happen. Along with all the information I've given, there's nothing better than actually seeing how people are engaging. And you can also see it live. You can watch it as a video. It's actually really interesting. Sometimes I just get some popcorn and start watching it. Right, okay. So they're the two tools that hopefully you'll find useful to take away, especially Lucky Orange, something worth looking at. So that, guys, wraps up today's webinar. So before we move on to questions, if you've enjoyed, give me a call. I would love to have a one-to-one with you. If you'd like a review, I'm happy to have a Zoom call with you and just talk about your website and give a few pointers in relation to the kind of things that we've spoken about today. And if you've enjoyed the webinar, please, 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 it'd be great if you could leave me a LinkedIn recommendation or even a Google review, or better still, both, because it's this kind of stuff. It goes back to personal brand, everything I've been talking about. That's the way that we connect with people, and that's what really helps us get out there. So on to questions. Right, so did you say Damien had a question, Danny?
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions in here. If I can find it. So Damien asked, which of the 5 would you say is the most important?
Well, that's a really good question, in that it's a tough question, because quite frankly, I think they all need to be done, and there's a lot of arguments for and against. But let's say you work on the assumption you're working to a very limited budget, and you can't afford a web developer to set you up some kind of automation for a lead magnet or anything like that. I think the 2 key things are, I know you've asked for one, but my mind's split between the website content, getting the content absolutely smack on, and calls to action. There's a debate for both, but I'd almost be swayed towards the call to action being the most important part, because if you can then take them through the site and nurture them through a journey through the site, you're using up more of their time, and it's that time to imprint your brand in their mind, and there's more likelihood that they're actually going to engage with what you put in. The reason I'm split with content is because obviously if it's complete gobbledygook, then they're going to leave anyway. So yeah, it's probably a balance between those 2.
Got another one from Samaya. I hope I'm saying that right. Sorry if not. Can Lucky Orange be used for an Instagram business page?
Ooh, good question. I don't know that. What you do is you take a piece of code and you drop it onto the website. So the answer to that is probably no, actually.
I don't think so, from a social media point of view, because I don't know where you'd put the code.
No, yeah, it probably wouldn't, and that would probably go against all kinds of their Instagram's own policies.
Yeah, lots of rules.
Yeah.
Phil Story has a question.
Okay.
Do you think you can have too many call to actions on the same page?
Yes, you can. Now, what I showed you on our lead magnet page, sorry, not the lead magnet page, the LinkedIn landing page, was there was quite a few things going on there, but they're also almost masked up as just informational pieces like the case studies. What we find with our website is the overview on the case studies page, it's got an overview of the key facts, and that's usually enough just for people to then move to the get a quote section. So there are actually a lot of calls to action, but the key thing that we want people to do on Danny's particular page is either go to the strategy services page or go to the social media page. So what I would say is, if you are going to have more than a few, think about it, think of it as a hierarchy. Think about it from a point of view of, what is the key thing that you want? Put the most important one or two, or at an extreme push, 3 above the fold. So the first part that you see when you log into a page before you scroll down, put that call to action above the fold. So hopefully that answers that.
I have another one from Samaya regarding to Instagram again.
Okay.
Could you give an example of where to put a call to action for an Instagram business page? Don't know whether that's one that you want me to take.
Yeah, I'm going to say, yeah.
I read it, I was like, your best place to actually put a call to action on Instagram is in your bio. And a lot of people miss out on that one. Obviously, you use call to actions within your posts and your stories every now and again, but if you want a persistent, permanent call to action, it needs to be in your bio. But Instagram is a whole ball game which could probably go across 1 million webinars, so I don't know if we've got time to go into any more of that. But if you want any more advice in regards to Instagram bios, then just drop me a message on LinkedIn or anything. And that looks like that's it for questions, so unless anybody's got any more, I think we're done.
We're done. Okay, yeah. Paul Green, you asked the question about the slides. This will be put on our website and a blog probably next week, so I'll put the slides on there and a bit of a recap of everything, so you'll be able to see that.
I have got another one just come through. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, all right, go on. What have we got?
Lee Pearson's just sent me one. Would it be an idea to put get a quote sticky key on your website in place of a button on each page?
Yes, so you're talking about a sticky header, Lee? Like a docking header? Yeah, you are. Yeah, so yes, absolutely. So I mean, you may not have seen that, but I'll just show you our site again. So even on the home page, it's permanently there. Get a quote is always on the top. So no matter where you're navigating throughout the site, you've got your calls to action, you're doing all kinds of different things, testimonial, etc., etc. That is always there at the top. It's a priority spot. So going back to the LinkedIn landing page, even in there, if anybody is, let's say you've gone to Danny's, let's say you've gone to my LinkedIn landing page, the navigation is always at the top. If somebody wants to go there and they don't really care about talking to me, they can go to the homepage, or they can go to get a quote, or if I want to funnel them through into strategy and discovery and so on and so on, I can do it that way. So yeah, a sticky header is always a great thing.
Cool.
Fantastic. Right, I think that's everything. Thank you very much, guys. That is almost bang on time. So thank you so much for coming along today. I hope it's been useful. And like I say, if it has been beneficial, a recommendation or review would be really much appreciated. Our details are on here. Send me an email. I'd love to have a one-to-one with you if you want to have a chat about your
Hamid has already left you a review.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, Hamid.
Already done. Thank you for all the nice comments and appreciation as well.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.